Hello friends, I'm Olha, the creator of this channel. A huge thank you to everyone for watching the story of the city where the history of Ukraine is concentrated, and the city where I was born. Enjoy the video. In May 1862, on a gentle hill about 22 kilometers from Nikopol, archaeologist Ivan Zebulin began excavating a burial mound almost 20 meters high. Beneath the enormous mound lay a Scythian king. Buried beside him were his wife, servants, and weapons. Around the grave stood a terrifying guard, a ring of 50 slain horses and riders. The burial mound was called Chortomlik, and this was only one of the tombs of Scythian rulers that the steppe around Nikopol may still be hiding today. A city beneath whose soil kings lie buried. A city where the hetman who changed the course of history was chosen. A city beside one of the world's largest manganese basins, and a city that today stands opposite Europe's largest nuclear power station under the constant threat of shelling. These are the 15 secrets of Nikopol. Let's begin. Why here? Nikopol stands on the right bank of the Dnipro, where the great river bends and for thousands of years formed a natural border between different worlds. Here the steppe met the water. Here the nomad met the farmer, the Christian met the Muslim, the empire met freedom. Scythians, Sarmatians, Cumans, Tatars, Cossacks, and Turks all passed through these lands. Every people left something here. They buried someone, hid something in the ground, or sank something in the river. And beneath all their feet lay an enormous layer of manganese ore. That is why there are not one or two secrets here, but 15. And each one leads to the next. Let's begin with the most deceptive one, the city's name. Secret 1. The city of victory that never had a victory. The name Nikopol sounds proud and majestic. From Greek, it literally translates as city of victory. In the ancient world, settlements were often given this name to commemorate great battles. There was a Nicopolis on the Danube. There were Nicopolises in Asia Minor. Ancient commanders founded such cities on the sites of their victories. A city born from victory. It would be logical to assume that the Ukrainian city of Nikopol also stands where some great battle once took place. But no such battle ever happened, none at all. This city grew not from a triumph, but from a river crossing. Here, on the bend of the Dnipro, stood a Cossack settlement and an important river crossing known as Mikitin Ri, or Mikitin Crossing. According to tradition, its name came from a Zaporizhian Cossack named Mikita, who operated the crossing over the Dnipro. It was a modest working place in the middle of the steppe. Boats, ferries, carts, and mud beneath horses' hooves. No ancient glory. Later, the settlement became part of the Yekaterinoslav Governorate. For a time, it was even officially called Slavyansk. It was as though the city was trying on names like borrowed clothes, and Nikopol was not the only place like this. Join me in the next segment as we uncover more of the secrets hidden in the soil of this city of victory.
The entire south of the Russian Empire was then being dressed in classical names. One after another, cities such as Yekaterinoslav, Kherson, Mariupol, Sevastopol, Ovidiopol, and others appeared as if from a cornucopia. Greek and Roman names were laid across the steppe, one after another. In this way, the empire replaced the old Turkic and Cossack names and rewrote the map to fit its own historical narrative. As though these lands had only just come into existence and no history had existed here before the empire arrived. Beneath the grand Greek name Nikopol lay hidden the simple Cossack name of Mikita and the memory of his river crossing. One name was placed over another, and by the 1780s, the modest Mikitin Ri was finally chosen to be refined. From a simple steppe name, they created the resonant name Nikopol, City of Victory, a name given almost in advance. But the very thing the city was encouraged to forget turned out to be its greatest secret. Because Mikitin Ri was not merely a ford or a river crossing, it was a key strategic point over which states and armies fought for control. So whose name does this city really bear? Secret 2. The uprising that reshaped Eastern Europe began here. In the winter of 1648, the Zaporizhian Sich stood on the cape of Mikitin Ri, the Mikitin Sich, wooden barracks, earth ramparts, a moat, cannons, and a Cossack army. It was here that Bogdan Khmelnytsky, already no longer a young centurion of the Chehirin regiment, arrived while fleeing persecution by the Polish authorities. His estate had been taken from him. His younger son was brutally beaten and later died. The woman Khmelnytsky loved had been taken away. He came to the Sich no longer simply seeking justice. He came to begin a war, and the Cossacks listened to him. At the Cossack council in the Mikitin Sich, Bogdan Khmelnytsky was elected hetman of the Zaporizhian host. He was presented with the mace and the military regalia. After this, Khmelnytsky made a move that few likely expected. He traveled to Crimea and formed an alliance with the Crimean Khan. In the spring of 1648, Khmelnytsky returned to the Sich and announced to the Cossacks, "The horde marches with us." The Tatar cavalry of Tugay Bey stood beside the Zaporizhian Cossacks. From here, from Mikitin Ri, the united army marched westwards, and from that moment, events began to unfold with remarkable speed. In May 1648, near Zhovty Vody, the leading Polish detachment was surrounded and defeated. A few days later, near Korsun, Khmelnytsky's forces defeated the Polish army and captured 2 crown hetmans. Then came Pilyavtsi, the siege of Lviv, and the march towards Zamość. In just 1 year, the uprising that began here near the Nikopol crossing destroyed Polish rule over a significant part of the Ukrainian lands. It started a war that changed the map of Eastern Europe for centuries to come. Think about it, not in Kyiv, not in Lviv, not in Warsaw. It was here, on a little-known cape on the Dnipro, where Nikopol stands today, that the Cossacks raised up a man whose name would later be given to cities, squares, and avenues. History was set in motion at this very point. In just a few weeks, Khmelnytsky went from being a fugitive who had lost almost everything to the commander-in-chief of an army before which the crown hetmans of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth were defeated. And the starting point of this rapid rise was the Nikopol crossing, a cape exposed to the steppe winds. No palaces, no magnificent cathedrals, only wooden barracks, horses, and the anger of people pushed to their limit. Sometimes history unfolds not where things are beautiful, but where they are painful. Yet guidebooks say almost nothing about this place. Why do so few people know about the point where Khmelnytsky was elected hetman? Secret 3. The King's Silver Amphora, more than 2,000 years old. Let us return to the Chortomlik burial mound where our story began. It lies about 22 kilometers from Nikopol. When Ivan Zabalin began excavating its mound in 1862, almost 20 meters high and around 350 meters in circumference, the archaeologists quickly realized that this was no ordinary burial. It was the grave of a Scythian king. Ancient looters had managed to enter the central chamber by digging a narrow passage towards it. One of them was buried by collapsing earth almost as he reached his goal. Archaeologists discovered the looter's skeleton crushed beneath the collapsed roof. Scattered gold objects lay nearby which he had no time to carry away, but the looters never reached the main treasures. In the side chambers, researchers found objects that truly take your breath away. Gold fittings for weapon sheaths and handles, richly decorated horse harnesses, the skeletons of servants, the remains of dozens of horses, arranged according to a strict Scythian burial ritual, and the greatest treasure, an enormous silver amphora with gilded details. A relief frieze ran across its surface. It showed Scythians catching, taming, and saddling wild steppe horses. An entire scene of nomadic life was frozen in metal more than 2,000 years ago. Today, the Chortomlik amphora is considered one of the most important examples of Scythian art. It is now held not in Ukraine, but in the Hermitage collection. It stands more than 1/2 meter high. It was probably not simply a vessel for wine, but a ritual funerary object that belonged to a member of the royal family. The Scythians did not build stone cities and left no written history of their own, but they left objects like these, gold and silver of such delicate workmanship that they were most likely created by the finest Greek craftsmen for the Scythian elite. Had such an object been found somewhere near Athens, perhaps every schoolchild would know about it, but it was found near Nikopol. Who was the king who was laid in this earth, surrounded by servants, horses and riders? Secret 4. The Zaporizhian world flooded in 3 years. Now imagine a completely different landscape. Until the middle of the 20th century, south of Nikopol stretched a place that no longer exists in its original form, the Great Meadow. It was a vast system of Dnipro floodplains, dozens of kilometers of channels, islands, lakes, wetlands, and flooded forests in the middle of the dry steppe. The Zaporizhian Cossacks called this place the Mother of the Sich, the provider and protector of the Cossacks. Giant sturgeon, sterlet, carp, and pike lived here. According to tradition, some fish could almost be caught with your bare hands. Herds of wild tarpon horses roamed the meadows. Deer, beavers, and wolves lived here. Above the water you could see swans, cormorants, and eagles. It was a natural world that for centuries fed, sheltered, and protected the Zaporizhian Cossacks. Without the Great Meadow, Zaporizhia itself might never have existed. The floodplain served at the same time as a fortress, a food store, a transport system, and a refuge. But in the 1950s, the Great Meadow disappeared beneath the water. After the construction of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station, the rising reservoir flooded the floodplains. Dozens of villages disappeared beneath the water. Tens of thousands of people were forced to leave their ancestral land. A unique ecosystem came to rest on the floor of an artificial sea, covering more than 2,000 square kilometers. A huge part of historic Zaporizhia was turned into a reservoir for electricity generation, irrigation, and navigation. Elderly people who still remembered the Great Meadow as it once was would later come to the reservoir's shore and stand there in silence. Beneath the calm grey water lay their streets, gardens, cemeteries, and churches. An entire world was erased in just a few construction seasons. Along with the villages, a significant part of Zaporizhian history also disappeared beneath the water. Places where Cossack Sikhs once stood, where councils were held, and Cossack barracks once filled the air with smoke, ended up on the shoreline or at the bottom of the new sea. Before the flooding, archaeologists managed to study and relocate only a small part of the historical sites. Everything else remained beneath the water together with the Great Meadow. The sea covered more than just the land, it covered memory itself. And the water held it there for almost 70 years, until one day it began to retreat. But we will talk about that at the very end of this video, and it will be the most powerful twist in the entire story. For now, remember this, the Kakhovka Reservoir was not just a lake, it became a lid covering an enormous flooded world. What else was hidden beneath its waters? Secret 5, 1.5 kilograms of gold that changed archaeology. About 21 kilometers from Nikopol, near the town of Pokrov, formerly known as Ordzhonikidze, stood a burial mound with a striking name, Tovsta Mohila. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary step hill, one of hundreds just like it. In 1971, a man arrived here whom the academic community had long refused to take seriously. The poet and archaeologist Boris Mozolevsky. He was born in a village and dreamed of studying burial mounds, but for many years could not find his way into the world of academic archaeology. Mozolevsky believed that Tovsta Mohila was not empty, even though its central burial had already been looted. The story of Mozolevsky himself deserves a film of its own. He came from a farming family, studied at a military aviation college, but never became a pilot. Later, he worked as a stoker, tending a boiler house, writing poetry, and continuing to dream about Scythian burial mounds. For a long time, he was not taken seriously as a scholar. Many saw him as an eccentric with a shovel. Yet it was this man who discovered what earlier researchers had failed to find. According to the story, Mozolevsky lifted the golden pectoral from the ground with his bare hands, afraid of damaging it with a metal tool. After the discovery, he could not sleep for several nights. Sometimes history is changed not by celebrated academics, but by people completely devoted to an idea. On 21st June 1971, in a side burial chamber untouched by looters, Mozolevsky uncovered an object that became one of the most famous artifacts of the Scythian era, the golden pectoral, a royal gold breast ornament measuring more than 30 centimeters in diameter and weighing 1,150 grams, more than a kilogram of almost pure gold. The pectoral is divided into 3 tiers. The upper tier depicts the peaceful life of the Scythians, men holding garments made from sheepskin alongside animals and scenes of everyday life. The middle tier is filled with floral ornamentation and birds. The lower tier reveals a fierce struggle between animals. Griffins attack horses, while lions and other predators tear apart their prey. Dozens of tiny figures were crafted with astonishing jeweler's precision. Many researchers had never expected to see such extraordinary craftsmanship in an object created for a nomadic people. In the same burial mound, which stood around 9 meters high, archaeologists discovered hundreds of gold objects, weapons decorated with precious details, as well as the burials of nobles, servants, and horses. But the pectoral overshadowed everything else. Today, it is regarded as one of Ukraine's national treasures and one of the country's greatest symbols. It has been kept in specially protected museum collections. Its image appears on postage stamps, commemorative coins, books, and school textbooks. And it was discovered by a man who for many years had been denied the right to practice archaeology on equal terms with recognized scholars. A poet who believed in a hill that others might simply have walked past. How many more burial mounds like this remain unexplored around Nikopol? Write in the comments which discovery from these steps has impressed you the most. I'm curious to compare your answers with what I'm about to tell you next. Secret 6. The sick erased from the earth and the ataman whose hand was feared by his enemies. Downstream from Nikopol, near the modern village of Kapulivka, stood the heart of the Zaporizhian Cossacks for more than half a century, the Chortomlik Sich, also known as the Old Sich. From 1652 to 1709, it was one of the main centers of the Zaporizhian Cossacks. Here stood the Cossack barracks, a market, a church, fortifications, and artillery. From here, the Cossacks set out on campaigns against the Crimean Khanate and the Ottoman Empire, and here they returned with their armies and the spoils of war. For many years, this Sikh was closely associated with a man whose name, according to legend, was spoken by his enemies with superstitious fear, Kosh Ataman Ivan Sirko. Extraordinary stories were told about Sirko. It was said that he never lost a single battle in his lifetime. It was said that the Turks and Tatars called him Urus Shaitan, the Russian or Cossack devil, and frightened their children with his name. It was said that bullets could not harm him and that the saber in his hand seemed to fight on its own. The Chortomlik Sikh is also linked to the famous letter of the Zaporizhian Cossacks to the Ottoman Sultan, the same bold and deliberately insulting reply that was later immortalized by the artist Ilya Repin in his enormous painting. In the painting, the Cossacks laugh while the scribe writes down their response to the Ottoman Sultan. Historians still debate whether the letter ever existed in exactly that form. Several versions of the text survive with different dates and different supposed signatures. But the spirit of the Zaporidian Sikh and the character of that era are captured remarkably well in the letter. Behind the legend of Sirko stood a truly formidable military leader. In 1675, Sirko led his army deep into the Crimean Khanate in revenge for raids and the people who had been taken into captivity. The Zaporizhian Cossacks swept through Tatar encampments and freed thousands of Christian captives. But the legend then tells an episode that is deeply disturbing. On the way back, some of the freed captives who had lived in Crimea for many years, had accepted Islam and built families there, did not want to return. They asked to be allowed to go back. According to tradition, Sirko ordered them to be killed. It is said that around 3,000 people were killed on the steppe. "Forgive us, brothers, and now rest here until the day of judgment," the ataman is said to have spoken over their bodies. A hero and an executioner in one man. That is how history has remembered him, as a deeply contradictory figure. But the darkest legend is connected with his death. Sirko died in 1680. People believe that his power did not leave this world with his body. According to legend, the Cossacks cut off the dead ataman's right hand and carried it with them on military campaigns as a battle talisman. Before battle, it was supposedly raised before the army with the words, "Sirko's soul and hand are with us." The Chortomlik Sich itself was destroyed in 1709 after Hetman Ivan Mazepa sided with the Swedish King Charles XII on the orders of Peter I. The Cossacks were killed, their buildings were burned, their fortifications were destroyed, the land was plowed over. The capital of Cossack freedom was meant to be erased so completely that not even its memory would remain. Sirko's grave near Kapulivka was disturbed and relocated several times in later years. In the 19th century, it was moved again after the original burial site began to deteriorate. In 1967, Sirko's remains were reburied once again to save them from the eroding shores of the Kakovka Reservoir. But where all of the ataman's remains truly rest today, around the man whose life gave rise to so many legends, remains a separate mystery. Secret 7. Beneath the city lies one of the world's largest manganese basins. Now let us go beneath the ground. And here, a completely different story begins. Nikopol stands beside the Nikopol manganese ore basin, one of the largest manganese deposits on the planet. It covers thousands of square kilometers. It stretches across the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. Its reserves are estimated at billions of tons of ore. The ore lies at depths ranging from several dozen meters to more than 100 meters, and in some areas, the manganese content is exceptionally high. Around Nikopol, Pokrov, and Marhanets, enormous quantities of manganese ore were mined for decades. Ukraine held an important position in global manganese mining and manganese concentrate production. The Pokrov and Marhanets mining and processing plants were among the region's most important industrial enterprises. Near the town of Marhanets, the land was quite literally turned inside out. Giant open pits and walking excavators tore through the steppe, leaving behind spoil heaps, sinkholes, and landscapes that looked almost like the surface of the moon. Sometimes entire settlements were relocated because valuable ore lay beneath them, and for the state that ore was considered more valuable than the homes above it. The steppe that had preserved royal burial mounds for thousands of years was opened from top to bottom by industrial mining during the 20th century. How many unnamed Scythian graves disappeared into those quarries together with the ore can no longer be determined. Manganese is not simply a rare mineral for collectors. It is essential for producing many kinds of steel and metal alloys. Without manganese, it is impossible to imagine railway tracks, armor, machine components, reinforcing steel, and much of heavy industry. It is one of the metals on which the industrial world largely depends. And here we encounter a paradox that is genuinely unsettling. The Scythian kings were buried in these mounds, never knowing that deep beneath their gold lay a treasure which, thousands of years later, would gain enormous industrial and military importance. The Cossacks defended the river crossing without knowing what wealth lay hidden beneath their feet. And in the 20th century, it was precisely because of manganese that the Nikopol region became strategically important. For centuries, the steppe concealed its greatest industrial treasure beneath the ground. But how much more is it still hiding that we have not yet even imagined? And this was far from the last remarkable discovery, because the next point on our journey once again brings us back to gold and silver. Secret 8, the silver bowl that revealed the faces of the Scythian elite for the first time. More than 60 kilometers from Nikopol, near the village of Balki, in 1969, an archaeological expedition led by Vasil Bidzilia began excavating another royal burial mound, Haimanova Mohyla. Inside were 4 burial chambers, ritual spaces, and thousands of artifacts. But one object brought this burial mound worldwide fame. Here too, looters had arrived before the archaeologists. They broke into the main chambers and carried away a significant part of the treasures. However, in one of the hidden chambers, in a dark niche beneath collapsed earth, the researchers discovered a concealed object. It was a gilded silver bowl, now known as the Haimanova bowl. Around its sides are relief figures of Scythian leaders. Bearded men dressed in richly embroidered clothing sit in pairs, talking, holding whips and weapons. This discovery became one of the most important sources that allowed us to see what the Scythian elite may actually have looked like. Not a modern reconstruction, not an artist's imagination, but images created by craftsmen who lived more than 2,000 years ago. The vessel itself is sometimes described as a communal ceremonial bowl, passed from hand to hand during a feast or ritual. It was made of silver and decorated with gold. It was most likely crafted by Greek artisans working on commission for the Scythian elite. The nomads may not have had workshops capable of producing work of this quality, but they possessed enough gold and wealth to hire the finest craftsmen of the ancient world. Alongside the bowl, the hidden chambers of Haimanova Mohyla contained gold plaques, jewelry, weapons, and other objects that the ancient looters had failed to find. The burial mound had already been robbed in antiquity, yet even the surviving objects became museum masterpieces of world importance. Just imagine what treasures the looters carried away if even the items they left behind proved so extraordinary. An entire people feared by the great states of the ancient world left behind not a single historical book of their own. For centuries, we knew about the Scythians mainly through the writings of the Greeks, their neighbors, trading partners, and rivals. And then, from a dark niche inside a burial mound, the faces of the Scythians themselves seemed to look back at us, calm, stern, commanding. Who were these men shown on the bowl? Kings, military commanders, blood brothers sealing an alliance? What are they discussing across more than 2,000 years of silence? We will probably never know. Secret 9. The Valley of Kings described by Herodotus. This is where the story becomes even stranger. Around Nikopol stand the famous Scythian burial mounds, Chortomlik, Tovsta Mohyla, Haimanova Mohyla, Soloka, Alexandropol, and many others. Such a concentration of royal burials in one region is unlikely to be a coincidence. Perhaps this land was chosen deliberately, and it may have been described almost 2,500 years ago. The Greek historian Herodotus, often called the father of history, recorded stories about the Scythians in the 5th century BC. He wrote that this people had a special sacred land called Geros. It was there, according to his account, that the Scythians brought the bodies of their kings for burial. Herodotus also described the burial ritual itself, one that is deeply unsettling. The body of the dead king was embalmed and covered with a special mixture. Then, for 40 days, it was carried on a wagon across the lands of the tribes under his rule so that everyone could bid farewell to their ruler and mourn him. After that, the body was placed into an enormous burial chamber. Alongside the king, one of his wives, his servants, his cupbearer, his cook, his groom, his messenger, his horses, and the finest possessions from the royal household were all killed and buried. A huge burial mound was then raised above the grave, made as high as possible. But that was not the end of the ceremony. 1 year later, a terrifying guard was created around the burial. 50 young servants were killed together with 50 horses. Their bodies were fastened onto specially constructed frames and placed around the burial mound like an eternal mounted guard watching over the dead ruler. For a long time, Herodotus's account of Geros could easily have been dismissed as nothing more than a frightening Greek legend. But as archaeologists excavated one burial mound after another across the lower Dnipro region, they uncovered remarkable similarities with Herodotus' description. Royal burials, slain wives and servants, dozens of sacrificed horses, complex burial chambers, and traces of what appeared to be that very symbolic mounted guard. Similar features were also discovered at Chortomlik. For this reason, some researchers associate Geros with the lower Dnipro region and the lands surrounding Nikopol. Nearby, close to Kamyanka Dniprovska, stands the famous Soloka burial mound. In 1913, an expedition led by Mykola Veselovsky discovered there a golden comb weighing almost 300 grams. At its top is a scene showing a Scythian horseman fighting alongside 2 foot soldiers. Today, this tiny masterpiece is recognized throughout the world. Chortomlik, Soloka, Tovsta, Mohila, Haimanova, Mohila, Oleksandropol, royal burial mounds stand one after another around Nikopol and across the lower Dnipro region. Each one revealed new evidence of the wealth and power of the Scythian elite. Such an extraordinary concentration of famous royal burials makes this region a true Ukrainian Valley of the Kings, a steppe cemetery of rulers that has existed for almost 2,500 years. How many royal tombs are still hidden beneath the earth? Secret 10. The icon before which atamans were chosen, and which no longer remains in its homeland. Now let us leave gold behind and turn to faith. The Zaporizhian Cossacks held a special devotion to the protection of the Most Holy Mother of God. According to Cossack belief, the Virgin Mary spread her protective veil over the warriors like a cloak, shielding them from enemy bullets and sabers. The principal church of every Sich was traditionally dedicated to the Feast of the Protection. Icons of the protection stood inside the Cossack barracks. The image of the Virgin was embroidered onto military banners carried by the Zaporizhian Cossacks into battle. There was also a distinctive iconographic tradition known as the Cossack protection. On these icons, beneath the outstretched veil of the Virgin Mary, were depicted not only saints or monarchs. Standing beneath it were the Zaporizhian Cossacks themselves, with their traditional oseledets hairstyles, dressed in jupans, carrying maces, sabers, and weapons. It was a people who symbolically placed themselves under the protection of heaven without the mediation of kings or noble lords. On the Feast of the Protection, traditionally celebrated on October 14th, the Zaporizhian Cossacks held their councils and elected the Kosh Ataman. Their decisions were made before the icon of the protection. It served at once as a spiritual banner, a symbol of unity, and a sacred oath of the Cossack host. Anyone who did not share this faith or accept the Cossack way of life was not regarded as one of their own. And it is remarkable how enduring this connection has remained. In modern Ukraine, the Feast of the Protection is still closely associated with the country's defenders and its military tradition. Several centuries later, the descendants of the Zaporizhian Cossacks continue to turn to the same image of heavenly protection. History seems to have come full circle. The symbol before which Cossack leaders were once elected on the land of Nikopol has become part of the identity of a modern nation that continues to fight for its own existence. Empires changed, flags changed, cities changed their names, but the protection remained. Yet now the story becomes one of loss. The churches of the Sich were built from wood, but their interiors could be worth a fortune. Golden and silver icon coverings, gospels bound in precious metals, chalices and sacred vessels crafted from gold and silver. After the Zaporizhian Sikhs were destroyed by the Russian Empire and later following the arrival of the Bolsheviks, many unique Cossack relics disappeared. Some of these sacred treasures ended up outside Ukraine in museums, church collections, and private holdings. Many have never returned to their homeland. The icons before which the Cossacks once chose the leaders of their free people found themselves far from the land where that tradition was born. Where exactly some of these sacred objects are today is still not always clear. Archives and museums do not always provide definitive answers. Secret 11. The city that supplies steel to much of the world under fire. Now let us leave the distant past and move almost into the present day. During the 20th century, Nikopol was transformed from a Cossack town into an industrial giant. In 1931, construction began on a pipe plant, and by 1935, the Nikopol South Pipe Plant had produced its first output. By the end of the 1930s, this single factory was manufacturing more pipes than the entire Russian Empire had produced in 1913. Seamless pipes, electric welded pipes, and centrifugally cast pipes for the oil, gas, chemical, and defense industries. Nearby, the Nikopol ferroalloy plant grew into one of the largest in Europe, transforming locally mined manganese into ferroalloys for steel production. Its furnaces smelted that very Nikopol ore into ferroalloys, without which high-quality steel cannot be produced anywhere in the world. Tens of thousands of people worked at the pipe plant, the ferroalloy works, and the mining and processing complexes in neighboring Marhanets. What appeared to be a quiet town on the Dnipro had quietly become one of the backbone centers of metallurgy, first for the Soviet Union and later for independent Ukraine. From the outside, it looked like a provincial town. In reality, it became a strategic industrial hub, without which factories far beyond Ukraine's borders would struggle to operate. And from that original pipe plant grew a company that deserves special mention, Centravis. Today, it is one of the world's 10 largest producers of seamless stainless steel tubes. Its products are supplied to partners such as BMW and Volkswagen, as well as the energy, aerospace, and medical industries. Little Nikopol, on the banks of the Dnipro, helps supply much of the world's industry with its pipes and alloys, and almost no one knows it. A city that appears to be a quiet provincial town is, in reality, an important link in global manufacturing supply chains. And this is where the story becomes most difficult. Since July 2022, Nikopol has come under fire almost every day. Yet throughout that time, the Centravis plant continued operating under artillery attacks, Grad rocket strikes, and repeated power outages. Its workshops survived dozens of direct hits. Compared with the period before the war, production fell by around 1/3, yet the company's revenue remained almost unchanged. The plant kept going. Then, when the enemy destroyed the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station and the water needed for production disappeared completely, operations came to a halt. Even so, just 2 months later, the company launched a new water supply system and resumed production. Workers continued reporting for their shifts while air raid sirens sounded overhead. Why? Because to stop the factory would have meant surrendering the city. How does a world-class manufacturer continue operating in a place where the streets come under fire almost every night? Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this documentary, please leave a like. It really does make a difference. Now, let's continue. Secret 12. The night the water receded and the past emerged from the bottom. On June 6, 2023, the world that had existed around Nikopol for 70 years suddenly collapsed. Russian forces destroyed the dam of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station. Downstream, a massive flood swept across the Kherson region. At least 34 people lost their lives, although the true number of victims remains unknown. It became one of the greatest environmental disasters in the history of independent Ukraine. But upstream, where Nikopol stands, exactly the opposite happened. The water began to disappear at astonishing speed. Within just a few days, the Kakhovka reservoir lost more than 70% of its water. For Nikopol, Marhanets, and Kryvyi, this triggered an immediate water crisis. Water treatment systems stopped operating. Factories shut down. Drinking water had to be delivered by tanker, while local people collected water from wells. The vast artificial sea, which 70 years earlier had drowned the Great Meadow, was transforming before people's eyes back into a narrow river channel, cutting through a cracked wilderness of dried mud. What had taken decades to create disappeared within days, and then something extraordinary emerged from beneath the retreating water. On the exposed bed of the reservoir, the landscape that had been flooded in the 1950s began to reappear. Ancient shorelines, house foundations, the remains of gardens and landing stages, the outlines of villages that had vanished beneath the water. Land that people knew only through the stories of elderly survivors returned to the surface, soaked with mud, covered in silt and split by deep cracks. But together with the past, danger also emerged. The current carried everything that had accumulated beneath the reservoir over 70 years along the newly exposed riverbed, sunken machinery, twisted metal, and even mines torn loose by the explosion, some of which were later recovered many kilometers downstream. And through the middle of the former reservoir, the original Dnipro River carved its way once more. The same river that had flowed here long before any dam existed. A river believed to have been imprisoned forever behind concrete returned to its ancient channel within just a few days. For 70 years, the water had concealed a drowned world. The destruction of the dam tore away its lid in a single moment. What else had lain hidden beneath the waters of the Kakhovka Sea all that time, we are only beginning to understand, and that brings us to a place from which an even greater danger now emerges. Secret 13. Across the river stands Europe's largest nuclear power station, and it is being held hostage. Stand on the right bank of the Dnipro in Nikopol and look across the water. On the opposite bank, only a few kilometers away, in the city of Enerhodar, stands the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest nuclear power station in Europe with 6 reactor units. Since March 4, 2022, it has remained under occupation. And between the power station and Nikopol, there is nothing but the river, a narrow strip of water. From this bank, the people of Nikopol can see the plant every single day, and every day they live under a double threat. The first threat is the constant shelling. The city is struck again and again. Hundreds of homes have been destroyed, people have been killed, children have been injured, thousands of residents have left, while those who remain often describe their city as a second Mariupol. But the second threat is even more frightening than any shell. If something were to go wrong at the occupied power station, if a reactor unit were damaged, if reactor cooling were to fail, or if radioactive material were released, the first place the radioactive cloud would reach would be this very bank of the Dnipro, the side where Nikopol stands. The city has become a nuclear hostage. Its future depends on what happens at a power station over which it has no control. The plant has already come dangerously close to disaster more than once. Since 2022, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has repeatedly lost all external power and has been forced to rely entirely on emergency diesel generators, the very systems that pump cooling water into the reactors and prevent the nuclear fuel from overheating. A mission from the International Atomic Energy Agency has remained permanently at the site. Its experts have repeatedly reported explosions, drone activity, and shelling in the immediate vicinity of the reactor units. The world watched anxiously, wondering whether another Chernobyl might unfold, this time involving 6 reactors instead of 1. And directly opposite, across a narrow stretch of the Dnipro, Nikopol carried on with daily life. For its people, this was never just another alarming headline. It was the view from their own kitchen window. And once again, history took a bitter turn. 1,000 years ago, this very river crossing at Mykitin was the gateway to Crimea, a passage between different worlds. Here the Scythians buried their kings. Here the Cossacks chose their leaders. Here empires fought for control of the crossing. Today, that same river separates a free city from an occupied nuclear power station. The frontier between worlds has never disappeared. It has simply become nuclear. What will happen to this bank if one day something goes terribly wrong on the other side? Secret 14. The crossing everyone fought for. Let us return to where our story began, to the river crossing. Do you remember Mykitin Crossing, the modest ford from which the city eventually grew? In reality, it was far more than a simple crossing. It was one of the most important strategic gateways in the entire lower Dnipro region. Here, in a bend of the river, the Dnipro could be crossed, and wherever there is a ford, there is a road. The road leading south from the Cossack and Russian lands ran towards Crimea, to the Ottoman Empire, and to the slave markets of Kaffa, the largest slave market on the Black Sea. Along this route, the Crimean horde drove tens of thousands of captives southwards, Slavic men, women, and children taken as human cargo. Along the same road, the Cossacks launched their retaliatory campaigns, burning Tatar encampments, attacking fortresses, and rescuing those who had been taken into slavery. Whoever controlled this crossing controlled the entire flow of war, trade, and human destiny. That is why every side clung to it with absolute determination. Cossack outposts and watchposts stood here. Nearby rose the Ottoman and Crimean fortresses that sealed off the lower Dnipro, Kizkermen, Tavan, and others. Their cannons commanded the river, intended to prevent a single Cossack Chaika boat from reaching the sea. Yet the Cossacks still slipped through. In their fast, shallow draft Chaikas, they traveled down the Dnipro past Ottoman guns, sometimes under cover of darkness, sometimes dragging their boats overland around the rapids and fortresses, before bursting into the Black Sea to raid Ottoman ports such as Sinop, Trabzon, and even the outskirts of Constantinople. For the Cossacks, the lower Dnipro near Nikopol was both the gateway to the wider world and the front line at the same time. The Ottomans built fortress after fortress in an attempt to lock that gateway forever. Yet time after time they awoke to find their own harbors ablaze. Whoever held this crossing held the key to the entire steppe. The city of victory, despite never witnessing one defining battle of its own, stood throughout its history on the front line of an endless struggle, a quiet, relentless contest for the ford and the road. That crossing determined who controlled the steppe, and in many ways it still does today. Only now, the front line once again runs along this very river. Is it merely coincidence that history keeps bringing war back to this same place? Secret 15, the Great Meadow returns. And now we reach the ending that has given meaning to everything that came before it. When the waters of the Kakhovka Reservoir disappeared in June 2023, Many believed it marked the beginning of a century-long ecological disaster. But the steppe had another answer. Within just a few months, something happened on the exposed reservoir bed that almost nobody expected so quickly. Green shoots emerged from the silt. First came grasses, then young willow and poplar trees. In the space of a single growing season, a genuine young forest appeared across tens of thousands of hectares where lifeless standing water had covered the land for 70 years. The birds returned. Wild animals followed. The ancient channels of the Dnipro and its side branches, hidden beneath the reservoir since the 1950s, began flowing once again along their original courses. Scientists walking across the newly exposed land could scarcely believe what they were seeing. The great meadow, the drowned Zaporizhian Eden that had long been thought lost forever, had begun to restore itself naturally without a single tree being planted by human hands. It is a haunting and beautiful symmetry. In the 1950s, people drowned a living paradise for the sake of electricity. In 2023, war, through the destruction of the dam, unintentionally gave that paradise a chance to return. Beneath the layer of silt, it was not only a flooded world that had been waiting for 70 years, seeds from the landscape that had existed before the reservoir had waited there as well. And as soon as the water disappeared, the land began remembering itself. That is what the Nikopol steppe truly conceals, not only the gold of kings or the bones of Cossack atamans, but an extraordinary ability to return again and again through every catastrophe. Let us bring everything together. A misleading name, a city of victory without a defining victory, the Sich where Bohdan Khmelnytsky was elected and from which a war spread across Eastern Europe, the silver amphora and the golden pectoral of the Scythian kings, the Zaporizhian Eden drowned for 70 years, the Chotomlik Sich erased from the earth and the severed hand of Ataman Sirko, one of the world's greatest manganese basins hidden beneath the ground, the faces of Scythian rulers preserved on a silver bowl, the Valley of Kings described by Herodotus, an icon carried far from its homeland, factories that continue supplying steel to the world while under fire, the drowned land revealed by retreating waters, a nuclear power station held hostage across the river, the crossing that every empire fought to control, and a living forest rising from the floor of a dead sea. One small city on a bend of the Dnipro, and within it, the stories of the Scythians, the Cossacks, empires, industry, and war, compressed into a single point on the map. Nikopol does not shout about itself, it remains silent, like the burial mounds that surround it. Yet beneath that silence lies more history than beneath many great capitals. And perhaps the most important thing is this: none of these 15 secrets answers the final question. Who will be the master of this land tomorrow? And what else will it bring back to the surface when the waters retreat once again? Which of these 15 stories impressed you the most? Tell us in the comments below. And if you know something about Nikopol that was not mentioned here, please share it. I read every comment. Perhaps one day, in 5 years' time, or perhaps in 50, someone walking across the exposed land near Nikopol will uncover a discovery that changes everything we thought we knew about this steppe. This land knows how to wait, and it knows how to return. Thank you for watching and for your interest. This was Olga Samusieva, Culture Observer, Sova.